At T-Mobile, our critical mission is providing unparalleled 5G coverage for when connectivity is mission critical. Introducing T-Priority, America's best 5G network experience for first responders, even in times of congestion. More capacity, faster speeds, better coverage. T-Priority from T-Mobile, built for tomorrow's emergencies, ready today. Discover more at t-priority.com.
For qualifying organizations on eligible rate plans, coverage not available in some areas and may be impacted by emergencies.
Welcome back, everyone, to another fantastic episode of the Every Pokemon Episode Ever podcast. I am one of your hosts this week, Professor Chris G, and on the other line with me is my terrestrialized buddy, who can guess what type he is this week. It's good old Dougie Fresh. Dougie, my man, what type are you this week?
I don't know. I didn't even know I could do that until just recently.
Oh man, but we have some good episodes. We're about to tie a bow on part 3 of the Netflix series of Pokemon Horizons today, so the last 4 episodes. And then we're going to take a break on the free feed because we're getting ready to gear up for a movie that's going to drop a little later than what we expected, but it's coming. So we're going to take about a month off on the free feed.
Yeah, life happens. And life has kind of happened this year more than some in the past.
Yeah.
We've still been able to provide content. Like, we just put out the game show, which I thought came together really well.
You liked it, right? Like I was gonna, I was gonna ask you how you liked that it was put together.
Oh yeah, no, I generally, and I think I've said this on episodes before, I don't usually listen longer than the intro, just to kind of make sure shit kind of comes off clean.
Yes,
I found myself essentially listening to the whole thing. I mean, I skipped around. Like, I didn't go all the way through all the rounds, but there was a few points where I had made original notes, like during the recording, and I kind of wanted to see like how you dealt with certain things, and I mean, peek behind the curtain, I guess. I think the raw file, I think, ended up being about 2 hours, and the version, Jesus Christ. The version that went out, I think, was an hour and a half, and I was like, oh, you did a lot of but I mean, you wouldn't be able to tell.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to tell, right? It seemed like everything went seamlessly, and hopefully gearing off of this going forward, that's kind of how our game shows will end up being when we end up doing another one.
Yeah, and I mean, you and I have talked. I mean, we've got like plans of attack about how we're going to cut down on a few things. We're going to streamline a few things.
Yes.
Certain people took advantage of certain loopholes.
Talking about yourself in third person, Doug?
Well, I mean, I'm not. Who's to say who I'm talking about? I mean, we don't have to go into it. I mean, it's not. Nobody's on trial here.
Yes, but it came through really well. Some of the music that I used, I thought came across really well, and then the outro for crowning our very first champion out there. I thought everything came together really, really well, and not to say that he didn't. And
I thought they both acquitted themselves very well. I thought you ran it very smoothly. I still think the fix was in, but
there was one question, Doug, you would have had 3 more points.
But that could have been all the momentum I needed. If I caught that and just rode that momentum the rest of the round, and then, I could have kept hot, but you f***ed me. I mean, we don't have to mince words. You f***ed me,
All right. But yes, great game.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. We are for the next games going forward, we are going to implement a few other rules as you stated, and to make the game go a little cleaner, a little smoother, and it'll be a cinch going forward. So if you want to be a part of a future game, go ahead and subscribe on patreon.com/every Pokemon and get in line, and you can test your Pokemon knowledge against everyone. And then we will then later put you up against our champion for a championship prize. I wonder what I can do for a championship prize. Maybe I can get some Pokemon cards and mail them out, or get like a little trophy that I can send out. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
We'll think about it.
The first thing that came to my mind when you were going through your head there was just mail out some packs, but
yep. So we will see. We're not sure what the grand prize will be, but that's way further down the line. That's probably going to be more towards the summer or fall of next year by the time we get down to any type of finals. So we will see. See. But yeah, I'm glad you liked it, Doug, and I'm glad you when going through it, and we've been receiving some decent feedback as well, and some people that I talked to on the good old Twitter, or in this case X. We've got
that's Twitter.
Yeah, it's Twitter. We have been getting some decent feedback on it, so I'm hoping that comes through. Again, for our schedule, we are going to take the next couple weeks to be recording the next Pokemon movie for our Patreon listeners. And then after that goes out, which is probably at this point going out around the new year, that will be out for about 2 weeks before we have any fresh content that is coming out. So you're looking at about a month on the free feed after this episode, that there won't be anything, and that'll give you enough time to kind of catch up. And if you want to subscribe and listen to other things on our Patreon, go ahead, because we also still have our Pokemon audio drama on there as well. So go ahead and subscribe. There is way more than enough for you to sit back on that's not here on the free feed. Right, Doug?
Give yourself a Christmas present, Hanukkah present, Kwanzaa present, whatever.
Yes.
Just because present, whatever.
So, or if you're feeling gracious and you know someone that listens to our show, gift them a subscription to our podcast.
Matter of fact, just be helping everybody out. Get yourself a subscription and get your friends and family a couple. Just, and hand them out.
Yes. Perfect Christmas gift this year for your ears. So
easy stocking stuffers.
Easy. So all right, Doug. So a little bit of housekeeping that we're going to do here real quick. So some Pokemon news that has come out right before we get into this is we do have the what they have deemed the season 2 name of Pokemon Horizons. It's called The Search for Laqua. I think I'm pronouncing it right.
I believe so. I mean, and that name has just recently started coming up in the episodes that we've covered in the past couple weeks.
Yes. So that is the season 2 episode. So season 1 will end up finishing off with 45 episodes. And to give a little glimpse as to where we are currently, we are going over episodes 31 through 34 today. So we are actually almost done with season 1. So maybe sometime next year, probably around, I'm going to guess April-ish, we should be done with season 1, Doug.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
Sounds good, but
It sounds good because I do want to get back into the. I know we've veered off once again from the original series, and I know people, and I hear you people, that you guys want us to start reviewing some of those episodes again. So we will get back into. And actually, probably to start off the new year, we will start off with a couple of the original series episodes to kind of get back into the mix before we jump back into part 4 of Horizons.
yeah, I mean we'll kind of go back in and we'll get our footing back on the original show, and then
Yep, because
just enough for you to get pissed off when we veer off again.
because it seems like we do that a lot. But and to do a little housekeeping, like I said, the next movie that we're doing, which will be on Patreon, is Pokemon Heroes, the movie. It is the 5th movie in the Pokemon series, starring the Pokemon Latios and Latias. So that should be fun, and yeah, that should be really fun to do because it's been a long time since I've seen this movie. So,
And I don't think I've ever watched it.
so I think you're gonna really enjoy it, Doug. So we'll be recording that probably in about 2 weeks, given our Christmas break and what we're going to be doing over break. So we will have that done. That episode will go out in about 2 weeks. So
Yeah.
but all right, the episodes that we're doing this week are Song Within the Mist, or translated from Japanese, The Singing Voice in the White Mist. The next one is Lapras's Feelings for Its Friends, or translated from Japanese, Laplace's Memories of Its Companions. The next episode after that is The Roar of the Black Rayquaza, and translated from Japanese, I think I like this one better, The Roaring Black Rayquaza.
Yeah,
Short,
I mean that's easy.
Short, sweet, and to the point. And then this one is the same from the Japanese version to the English, and both episodes are called Respective Departures. So that's how we are going to end today. We have the episodes up here, and all of these episodes premiered here in the States on May 27th of 2024. The first one that we're doing today premiered December 1st. The second, December 8th, the third, December 15th, and the fourth, December 22nd of 2023 in Japan. So are you ready to jump on into these episodes, bro?
Definitely.
Then let's get this ball. Actually, I lied, everyone. I did lie. Not May 27th of 2024 for the English version. It was August 9th of 2024 here in the US. There you go. Okay.
Oh.
So my bad. I was looking at the wrong date here. So we are jumping into these episodes, and we are starting with the Song Within the Mist. So, as we've been going through these episodes, these have been more of a conversation, but we do hit the key points as to what's going on in these episodes, so we don't have to go scene by scene for you. But we did end up starting this episode with some random workers who are transporting Pokemon food on their boat over to another area. And while transporting these goods, these workers end up coming into a really, really thick mist. And they're like, oh, what's going on here? And they're like, oh, all we got to do is just keep straight. We have a GPS here, and this mist will be nothing. It's just mist.
Where'd all this fog suddenly come from?
Think we should turn back and navigate around it?
Come on, a little fog is nothing to...
There's dangerous reefs in these waters. If we can't see where we're going, then...
Then we can't safely turn the ship around either.
You guys hearing that?
Sure am. Huh? That looks like it's a Lapras.
And then from there, the fog starts to lift up. They see sunlight, and they listen to the voice of the Lapras, and Lapras leads them out of the fog. And all of the workers are like, thank you, Lapras. Thank you for helping us get through this fog. So starting off there, Doug, what was your feelings when I mean, you know what's going on, but when you were originally watching, how did you feel about that as you were watching this episode?
I didn't mind the way it opened because I think, coming off of the last episode, we found out that Lapras was going to be another member of the Legendary Six. I mean, that's not their name, but I don't have it off the top of my head right now. And, to kind of, get that scene and have the Lapras leading them out of the fog, and then to kind of get thrown right into the meeting on the ship where it kind of sounded like Diana was going over a similar story. I thought that weaved together well, and then. And I'm not trying to jump.
Yeah, you don't need to jump too far. But we the next scene that we end up getting into is all of the crew members, and they're sitting here and they're talking about how to find Lapras, and that there seems to have been a Lapras that's not too far from here that has been seen. And they're like, well, maybe we can go out and we can start asking some people if they've encountered this Lapras and see if we're able to get some clues in order to find it. So,
I did have, I wrote down Dumbass Roy moment number 1 of the episodes we were covering.
what was his moment?
Well, because Diana was talking about how previously she'd kind of been on the trail of Lapras, because you hear she's like, you hear stories about a mysterious Lapras leading ships and making sure nobody wrecks and all that stuff. And she goes, well, you'd hear one story and you'd go here and she'd be gone or whatever. And Roy pipes up without a sense of anything going on. He goes, did you catch it? Like, no, Roy.
If we caught it, we wouldn't be looking for this Lapras right now.
If we caught it, we could skip like 2 episodes here. But, and I mean, insert obligatory Doug doesn't like Roy comment here. But I was like, God, I mean, I understand he's a kid, but come on, have a little bit of awareness.
So after that, Dot ends up coming up on the screen, and she's like, well, it's been noted that there's some heavy fog that comes in this area over here on the map. And she kind of points on the map, and she's like, if we're going to find a Lapras, this might be the spot that we would end up finding it. And then we kind of just jump straight from that to our heroes talking to the crew that just encountered Lapras. And
yes.
And the guy is kind of praising Lapras, and he's like, yeah, you know what? Thanks to Lapras, we had hit some currents over there, but Lapras helped us get out of there, and so we can see again. And we unexpectedly had all of our Pokemon food fall off board. So we had to come over here and get a second shipment so we can get it over to our supplier. And that's where Free was like, he's like, whoa. He's like, all of your supply? And he's like, yeah, all of it went overboard. So we had to come back here. And he's like, yeah, it costs us a little bit more money to come back, but our supplier paid for it. So we got to go ahead and get it over to our supplier. And this is where we jump back onto the ship. There's a lot of jumping in this episode to get to the point that we're going to be getting to. And we're now back up on the boat. And this is where Liko is going over what Lapras is by looking it up in her Rotom Dex. Do you want to kind of go over this part, bro?
Yeah, so, we get the standard Pokédex entry, and I would say the key piece of information we find out is that Lapras can understand human speech. Now, I think that's been implied with a lot of Pokemon. I mean, because Ash has essentially had like full-on conversations with every Pokemon he's ever caught. I
think what they mean, because you'll have to think back to an earlier episode, but do you remember one of those special Pokemon episodes? I believe the one with the Jinx, where they meet Santa Claus, and how Lapras was actually having telekinetic full-blown conversations with Ash while he was being saved in that episode.
Oh shit. Good pull.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what it means by it can understand human speech, because it can have human speech telekinetically from its psychic powers.
Oh, okay. Okay, that makes a lot. Okay, I completely slipped my mind. Okay, that puts things in a lot better perspective.
Yes.
Okay, I'll have to make a note of that to go back and check that episode out. But yeah, getting back to the episode, Liko is excited about this because she said we won't have, issues like we've had with Arboliva and the Galarian Moltres. If we can legitimately communicate. And this is when Roy kind of throws in that there was a friendly Lapras on the island when he was growing up.
When I was living on the island, a Lapras would come and hang out near the beach. It loved people and would let us all ride around on its back. Really? That's amazing! If I made friends with one, do you think it'd let me ride around on it? Oh yeah, no doubt about it. That sounds so fun!
Roy's like, oh, look over there. Is that treasure? And we zoom in and we find out that it's an empty crate with the same markings that the ship had in the open.
Yes.
And
they're like, oh, this must have been the area that the ship went over.
So, they kind of make note of that. And let's see.
It's at this point that they're looking around and they see the mist and they see some things going on, and then they're like, oh, okay, so Lapras is about to make its entrance here onto the boat, because Freed ends up seeing Lapras all the way off into the distance, and so does Diana. And she's like, okay. And this is where Liko takes Terapagos out, and Terapagos is trying to call out to Lapras. And it's at this point that the ship starts rattling, and it's rattling really, really bad. And this is where they turn around and they start seeing some Pokemon jumping aboard onto the ship. And they're like, whoa, what is going on here? So give me one moment. I'm actually going to name the Pokemon that came onto this ship, because some of these Pokemon I don't believe you are familiar with. So let's see. We do have an Apom, and a toad scroll. It's the ground grass version of a tentacruel. So
Okay. They look similar. I'm familiar with Apom because I believe he came in gold and silver.
yes. So they were, and then you see a Wailord going off as well, and you see the Pokemon just jump off the ship and they just run away. And we're like, what the hell just happened here? And that's when they notice that some of their supplies is gone. And now they have to figure out, and Freed is getting the idea as to kind of what's going on here. You want to continue where you left off, bro?
So yeah, this is when we kind of start putting pieces of the puzzle together, and Freed kind of assumes that all these Pokemon, the Apom and the Toedscruel and the Wailord, they were kind of working together, and they were using, or not that they were using, they're in cahoots with Lapras, and he basically puts a period on the sentence and said this is a band of wild Pokemon pirates.
Yes.
And they kind of Shanghai ships that are randomly out here, and they take food or equipment or supplies.
And they're trying to figure out why they're doing this, because they don't want to think the worst of these Pokemon, but Freed also doesn't want them to continue to keep doing what they're doing.
Yeah, and Roy has this point where he's like, "Oh, so they're stealing from these ships and from us specifically," and Diana kind of sets his head straight a little bit, and he's like, or rather, she's like, "What you consider stealing is their version of surviving."
Yeah, I was about to say they're just trying to survive here. So,
and Roy's kind of like, "Oh."
So it's actually really, really good that they have Diana here, because Diana is kind of the level head in this whole thing. So they all cook up a plan to say, okay, we need to bring up a whole lot of food, and we're going to bait them in, and we're going to see exactly what's going on here. So the mist comes in after they bring up all the food and everything, and then this is when Pikachu starts using its boat tackle to cook up a tornado to move the mist out of existence, which is a good idea. I like that. That was a good use of boat tackle. And,
it was.
And it's at this point that all the Pokemon that are talking to each other, and they're going over their plan of attack, and the Pokemon don't even realize that the mist is gone. Like, they think they're still invisible, and all these Pokemon, and there's a big handful of them. Let me kind of go over a few of these Pokemon, because that's what this show is all about. So we have a Wingull, a Toedscruel, an Apom, a Wailord, a Domise, a Barbacle, an Octillery, a Galarian form Slowbro, a Jellicent, a Remoraid, a Mantine, a Klotzer, a Bibarel, a Mandibuzz, Vigoroth, and a Dragal. Is all of the Pokemon that are trying to survive by stealing all of these goods. So We see all of this happening, and of course, we go straight into Pokemon battle form, and we see Lapras, and Lapras is looking back and it's like, oh, you caught us. You caught us. Well, you know what? I'm gonna scream at you. Rah! And it does like a big roar, and the roar shakes the entire ship. And Liko is like, oh my God, what is going on here? What are we gonna do now? And that's literally how we end the very first episode. Short, sweet, and to the point, bro.
Yeah. And I mean, I know we said up top that all 4 of these episodes are are very interlocked, which they are, but the first 2 basically are a 2-parter that's just not.
I would say these are like a 4-parter, because these 4 episodes, without one of these episodes, we can't tie anything together. So I would easily say that all 4 of these episodes blend together very, very nicely. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah. Kind of thinking about that. I mean, they do kind of outside of the kind of the little like previously on, they do kind of all pick up like right when the last one left off. Yeah.
So, all right, I'm pulling up the next episode, and the next episode that we are going over, everyone, is Lapras's feelings for its friends. And we start this episode right off the bat of the last one, and we have Lapras. And why does evil Pokemon always have to have like an evil like scar or something on it? Like
because Disney.
But this is Nintendo.
I know, but I mean, I think as millennials, I think we've been conditioned to think, oh, anything, because obviously Scar from The Lion King,
which I am going to see pretty soon, because I am hyped for seeing that movie. Just saying, I'm really hyped.
But I think that it's like, oh, we need a way to quickly identify, either evil or bad guy, and it's like, oh, give him a scar, specifically somewhere on the face.
Yep.
And it's like, oh, he was in battle, or he was a fighter or something.
What if this Lapras is in relation to Ash's old Lapras that he gave away? And said, "Go back with your pack."
I was gonna say that's the one that was always like causing trouble and shit.
Yep.
And they finally kicked him out. I mean, and that's funny because I kind of had a note here. I was like, missed opportunity to tie Ash Ketchum in.
I know. I mean, I know they tied this Lapras in to the 6 heroes or whatnot, but it's just that was a full-blown missed opportunity here. But we'll see.
And I know that we probably have that in front of our minds just because we're so familiar with, the original Kanto series. But, and I'm not saying that Ash Ketchum has to be tied in
to this series,
to everything, like as some kind of Pokemon's version of the Watcher, but
it'll be nice.
I mean, he kind of is, I
was about to say he really is. So, all right. So let's go ahead, and are you ready, bro, to continue these?
Yes.
All right. So we start this episode. So if you remember from a few minutes ago, all of those Pokemon have jumped aboard the ship, and Liko is looking through, and Terapagos notices Lapras, and it's like, oh, friend, hey, friend, over here, look at me, I'm here. and uh, it's communicating to Terapagos telekinetically. So we don't end up seeing what they end up saying, but we see that Lapras seems like it's ashamed of what it's doing. And Liko kind of puts together, and it's like, oh, you're talking to Terapagos. You must be one of the 6 heroes. And Lapras goes over to his friends and says, hey, everyone, attack. So all of these Pokemon just jump onto the ship, and this is where we have a full-blown Pokemon battle on the ship. We end up having Rockruff thrown out, Chansey's thrown out, and it's not enough to take on all of these Pokemon, but it's a good start. Doug, you wanna go over this part?
Yeah. So, basically, let's see here. Liko and Roy are in there, and
Molly and Murdoch send out their Pokemon to fight, and then it's just a full-blown battle with everyone.
So we kind of have like a a loose like 4-on-4 kind of thing.
Yes.
And our heroes are kind of getting worked over a little bit.
And then Diana comes in with her Arcanine.
Yeah, she swoops in, and they're like, "Oh my God! Thank God Arcanine's here. Otherwise, we'd all be fucked." And so yeah, Arcanine comes in.
Charizard, Pikachu.
Charizard and Cap come in, and they're using their OP attacks, which kind of makes me wonder why they didn't just jump in to begin with. And you say, well, Doug, Roy and Liko are the main characters of the series. Yes, but they were getting bodied. But anyway. Basically, Lapras is kind of hanging back, and it kind of sees, hey, the momentum is flipping. Why don't we retreat? So, Lapras calls everybody back, and and Freed's like, well, maybe not so much to continue the attack, but I think we should kind of follow them to kind of make sure that they're not gonna cause more trouble.
Yes, so they end up following everyone. Let's see. They see a little boat in the far distance. So they go over and they start following it. And let's see, give me one. Oh no, it's not a boat. They find Wailord in the far distance, and they roll up on all of these Pokemon. And Quagsire comes out and starts making a big wave so that they can avoid the attacks of all these water Pokemon that are in the water, because these water Pokemon are about to work them over with some heavy hydro pumps and water guns. And it's at this point that Lapras is like, oh, you want to follow us? Well, guess what? I'm going to come over and I'm going to hit your ship. Boom. And it just goes over and hits the ship, and then bounces back and does a huge ice beam on the ship and in parts of the water to make the ship just get stuck. And
then they have the perfect go to midpoint break. They're like, we're stuck in the ocean. Ah! That's exactly how it went.
That's exactly how it went, Doug.
That's exactly it. You could look it up. That's verbatim. That's that's what we call acting.
So I'm gonna let you, because we're after the break here. I'm gonna have you go over about the next 5 minutes or so of this episode before we tie a bow on this one, Doug.
Okay, so we're stuck, and then basically, the Volt Tacklers are like, well. they're kind of daring Lapras to kind of come out of hiding, to show itself or whatever, because it's like, well, we're stuck. Um, Lapras's crew has to know that we're stuck, so they have to think that we're just kind of sitting ducks. And um, and they basically talk about how Lapras is um kind of guiding all these Pokemon that aren't exactly water types.
And this is where Liko also goes and grabs the belt of Lucius that the grandmother gave her a couple episodes ago. And she's like, we need to just get off of the ship and just go and follow these Pokemon. And they end up beating Lapras over there. They follow the Pokemon, but we don't even get to see how they get over to where all the Pokemon are, because Lapras is even stunned that our heroes have made it inside of their secret base. Doug?
I mean, I did notice that. I mean, it was just kind of like, oh, by the way, we found your hideout. But I mean, thankfully, for the benefit of the audience, they did kind of do a flashback, and they're like, well, Roy saw that floating crate last episode, and I think you and I kind of remarked that it was going to come back into play down the road, and I knew it had to be in this episode because they do kind of tie a bow at least on this arc of the story.
Yes.
And Lapras is like, you're going to invade my hideout, and
they have to slowly. All the other Pokemon are in here, and they're trying to come to the defense of Liko and Roy because they brought them food, and then Terapagos is making friends with everyone as well, and Lapras is like on like high tense mode, and Liko's
high alert.
There you go. Is on high alert mode, and Liko's like, listen to me. We're not here to hurt you. Terapagos wants to go to how do you pronounce that? Laqua wants to go to Laqua, but we need your help, Lapras. And it looks over at Terapagos, and Terapagos is like, oh yeah, me. And then Terapagos starts talking over to Lapras again, and Lapras ends up sending out a huge aura from its body, and Lapras is like, you know what? Fine, I will let you in. And it's at this point that the belt that Liko is wearing, which is Lucius's, starts lighting up, and the Pokemon Moltres and how do you pronounce that other one, Doug?
Arboliva.
There you go. Moltres and Arboliva end up popping out of their Pokeball too to talk to Lapras, and Lapras sends out that big aura to look into the past of Lucius, and Lucius is in the middle of some type of like battle, and it's like, you know what? Don't worry, I will be coming home, and
I will survive. He says.
I will survive, and I'm getting a hint, and it has not been established yet, but I'm getting a hint that this was one of Lucius's last moments, and he probably got killed after this, or something happened to him, because we don't get to see what happened, but as soon as he goes off into the white light, Lapras just starts crying, and all of the Pokemon just start cooing because they remember something that we can't see yet.
And basically, this is when Liko kind of has like the final pitch to Lapras, come join us. You're destined, you're one of the six.
Please help us.
Please help us. And then this is when we see that Lapras has been keeping hold of its ancient Pokeball.
Oh, and I don't want to gloss over this part yet either. Apparently, we find out that all of these Pokemon made a pact with each other as well. That when the time comes, that they will all help each other. So that is something that we did find out here. And these Pokemon were not stealing to just be mean, but they were stealing because they have no other ways of getting food where they are located.
which is something that Diana had kind of hinted on, but obviously she couldn't know, the exact specifics.
Yep.
But I mean, from jump, she's like, "Hey, you don't know their circumstances."
And
Roy's like, "No, their feet."
Speaking of Diana, this is where she comes flying in on the ship, and Liko's like, "How did you guys get free of the ship?" And she was like, "Well, Arcanine helped us out with that." Basically saying Arcanine melted all the ice,
which is something Arcanine probably could have done within 5 seconds of them getting stuck. But here we are.
Yep. So all the Pokemon end up becoming friends again, and they end up. It's now dusk is now falling on all of our friends, and they're looking over at Lapras, and they're like, "Lapras, will you come over and will you join us?" And Lapras is like, "You know what? I made a pact, and I will help you." Apom brings up the Pokeball, and Lapras then ends up going inside of the Pokeball. And then now they have another friend here, but the episode is not done yet, bro. What do we see at the end of this episode?
For the first time in, I would say, a decent chunk of episodes, we finally get another sighting of the Black Rayquaza, and Roy absolutely loses his shit.
And
he's like, "Oh my god, it's the Black Rayquaza."
And then they end the episode.
And you're like, son of a gun.
So luckily they dropped these in batches on Netflix. So we're going to just go ahead and go on into the next episode, which is The Roar of the Black Rayquaza. So this episode ends up starting off with good old the Explorers. And Amethio and his crew have gathered some strong pressure points coming from what they believe is the Black Rayquaza. And their submarine comes up, and they look off into the distance, and they're like, "It is the Black Rayquaza. Corviknight, come out!" And Amethio jumps on top of his Corviknight, and he's like, "Let's go catch us a Black Rayquaza." And that's where we are jumping on in. I got to fast forward through all this intro, and then they end up recapping what just happened.
He basically joins the fray because Roy is immediately in, "Oh my god, it's the Black Rayquaza. I've been chasing him forever. Let's battle. Come on, let's battle. We haven't seen you since the caves or whatever."
And it's also at this point that Terapagos for the first time is starting to talk to the Black Rayquaza, but Roy just jumps right in front of him, and he's like, hey, talk to me. And
you're a Pokemon. Let's battle. I have a Pokemon that I kind of don't really train, but he has two attacks I could use.
So, and I want to slow down on just...
Actually, he's got 2 Pokemon. We just don't see Wattrel that often.
I know.
Shit.
He I want to slow down just on this part because a lot ends up happening within these like 2 or 3 minutes. So what happens here is the Black Rayquaza is basically acknowledging that our heroes have found the other some of the other buddies that were on this journey with Lucius, and
Right.
and this is the calmest that we've seen the Black Rayquaza. And then out of nowhere, a Methio ends up coming out. And he's like, I'm going to catch you, Black Rayquaza. And the Black Rayquaza ends up shooting some type of beam over at the Corviknight. And a Methio jumps down. And he's like, all right, Cerulege, let's go. And Cerulege and the Black Rayquaza and Corviknight end up fighting the Black Rayquaza, and the Black Rayquaza ends up losing control of its power. Well, it seems like it is during this time frame, and everyone's like, all right, everyone back up on the ship. This is not the time that we need to be out here. And Roy is over here. He's like, no, I'm not leaving.
Pissed. He's like, I saw him first. We were going to have a battle. Freaking Methio comes in. I mean, he wait in line. I was here first.
He was so mad. And if you're not watching this episode, and you're just listening to our take on it, if you can think of a cartoon character being held back by someone, and he's like, no, I want to go out there. No. And Freed literally had to bear hug Roy.
Hey! Not now!
Rayquaza's right there!
You can't!
Let me go, Freed! I've got to see Rayquaza! I'm not gonna...
Get everyone back to the ship on the double! Let's go, Roy!
Rayquaza! I'm down here!
Liko, you need to get back as well.
And Roy is kicking and screaming. He's like, no. He's like, I have waited so long, and I am not going to lose my opportunity of getting this Black Rayquaza. And then a Methio with all of his Pokemon just start battling, and then the waves in the water just get more ferocious, and Diana's even like, okay, Liko, we need to get out of here now. This is not the time nor the place for us to be out here. Murdoch is even going. He's like, guys, get back on the ship now. And Roy's like, no, I want to stay. No. And everyone just goes and jumps back onto the ship, and Methio is fighting with his Cerulege, and Cerulege goes up to try to use one of its attacks, but gets blown over into a big thing of rocks, and the rock explodes when Cerulege hits it. And then the Black Rayquaza ends up sending some of its beam down onto Cerulege and just annihilating it. And Methio is like, oh no, Cerulege. And all that's left of Cerulege at this point is a thing of black smoke. And he's like, oh no, this Black Rayquaza is too powerful. And the Black Rayquaza ends up flying towards all of our friends. And Roy jumps right back out there. And he's like, hey, battle me, Rayquaza, battle me. And this is where Terapagos ends up trying to talk to tries talking to Rayquaza again, but the Black Rayquaza ends up using Meteor Shower, and Charizard has to now come in with Arcanine to start using their flamethrower to save all of our heroes, because Rayquaza is testing all of these Pokemon. And then Terapagos ends up... I wanted to say it was evolving, but it's not evolving. It's like using some of its inner core power to like kind of terrestrialize itself into like a bigger version of itself. Do you want to kind of go over this part, Doug?
Yeah, I was gonna specifically shout out Bulbapedia has it down as Terapagos is using terrestrialization.
Okay, cool.
Because I made note of that, because they even shouted it out in the episode. They're like, is that an evolution? And they're like, not quite. Because even I would have been like, that's not earned.
No,
I
not
mean,
yet.
I like evolutions, but like, this Pokemon's only been a thing for like 2.5 episodes or something. Um, I mean, more than that, but um, and basically, the Terrapagos uses Terra Starstorm. No, not Stars. Jesus Christ, Doug, learn how to read. Um, yeah, that is Starstorm. Stanstorm? What the fuck?
Is that what it's called? Because
Yeah,
it okay.
Starstorm. Starstorm is what they have it as. Again, all credit and shout out to Bulbapedia.
Oh no, Terra Starstorm. There you go. Yes. So it uses
Yeah, yeah, Terra Starstorm.
Terra that's really hard to say. Terra Starstorm, which all of these meteors ends up coming over onto the field, and that's where Charizard has to come in and start blasting away some of these.
Yeah, so basically, the terrestrialized version of Terrapagos, which is not something you can say 3 times fast,
No.
basically wards off all the meteors and collapses back into its normal form. And everybody's like, "Oh my god, Terrapagos!" Um, and then, not to jump too far ahead, but Terrapagos is. I'm going to go back and forth, and I'm not doing it on purpose. I swear to God, I just realized I was doing it. Um, but Terrapagos is basically out for the rest of the episode.
Yes. So,
Um,
it goes in and starts to sleep because it used up all of its power, terrestrializing itself.
so basically, they take Terrapagos into Molly, and Molly's like, "I'll keep an eye on it," but it's not hurt; it's just exhausted. Um, and then
The black Rayquaza starts to fly away, and Amethio is pissed, and so is Roy as well. And Roy is like, "Oh no, the Rayquaza, it's leaving us again." And Freed is kind of he has the thought that the black Rayquaza is kind of tailing them on this whole journey while they are collecting up all the heroes. Right, Doug?
and well, yeah, and I mean, because Liko made the comment, had to have been at the end of the second episode we covered, where she was like, we're halfway there. Um, because they've got 3 of the 6 officially, and they've got a beat on Rayquaza, obviously, but they haven't been able to, like, because I mean, obviously Roy has Rayquaza's Pokeball,
Yes.
but
He can't get it to go back inside.
right. So I mean, out of the 6, they've technically got like 3.5.
Yes.
But obviously, I think they're setting up Rayquaza to be like the final like push. But I mean, obviously, I don't want to get too far ahead of where we're at. And it's about this time. Let's see. Before I,
So it's about this time that we jump back onto the ship and it's nighttime, and we find out that Diana is getting ready to leave again. And Diana is talking to Freed, and she's like, "It's time that I go out on my own again, and will you please look after Liko and make sure that she's safe on this journey?" And Freed is like, "You don't have to do this alone." And Diana's like, "Yes, I do. I'm not much of a person that can tail around with a group of people. I'm a loner." And after these last few days, and after seeing the Lapras yesterday, I'm kind of at peace for a part of my life now, and now I can move forward on some other ventures that I have in mind. And I don't stay in one spot for too long, but I need you to promise me that you're going to take care of Liko and make sure that she is safe, and then that you guys continue this journey. And Freed's like, well, how do we get in touch with you? And she's like, well, technology is not my strong suit, but you know what? Squawkabilly, if you need me, Squawkabilly is always right here, and we will always end up finding each other. But for the time being, I do need to go. And Frida's like, okay, well, if that's how it needs to be, then that's how it needs to be. And we fast forward to morning, and it's at this point that Diana walks over to Liko. She walks over to Roy at two separate points, and she's like, hey guys, can you come here with me for a second? And they all end up meeting up on the battlefield on the ship. And she's like, it's time to have a Pokemon battle, 2-on-1. And Doug, I'm gonna give you the honors of going through a lot of this battle, because this is a unique battle and a unique thing that Diana is about to do for Liko and Roy.
So they're kind of stunned. They're like, well, 2-on-1 battle, that doesn't seem fair. And Diana's like, well, how does she phrase it? She's like, I just kind of want to make sure you're on the right path. You know, you don't really have to battle me. She's like, matter of fact, just land one hit and I'll be satisfied. And they're like, well, you know, we should be able to luck into one hit, for goodness sakes. I mean, but I mean, obviously we established, you know, both at the beginning of this episode and a little bit in the last episode as well, that Arcanine is extremely well leveled, and it's faster than all get out. So, Fuecoco, you know, obviously he can't hit his Ember, because if he could do that, it would be over in like 5 seconds, even by accident.
Yes.
And
so it has to be strategic in what it's doing. So basically they're like, as long as you can touch Arcanine, you will win this battle. Otherwise, what it ends up doing is like using its roar to like have like to beat down Sprigatito, and then it bounces away with a big ass Ember attack on Fuecoco, and Fuecoco is like, fuck. That was hot. And I'm a fire type Pokemon.
So basically, Diana has Arcanine use Sunny Day, which powers up fire type moves. And you know, Roy at that point obviously can't.
He doesn't comprehend what's going on yet.
Well, no, but I mean that's not hard to do. Roy seems to be very kind of in the moment. Doesn't really have the ability to think moves ahead or think how he could utilize a situation. But you know, luckily the Pokemon kind of know what's up, even if Liko and Roy don't.
Yes.
So they kind of, well, obviously Fuecoco is somewhat affected by the presence of Sunny Day, and Sprigatito kind of. It
starts using Ember to go toe to toe with Arcanine,
which I call BS.
Well, I don't think Arcanine's goal was to fry Fuecoco. I think that it was just using its Ember attack to go toe to toe with however big of power Fuecoco can use its flamethrower, or its Ember attack.
Well, yeah, well that's a fair point, because if Arcanine wanted, he could barbecue.
Sprigatito.
Fuecoco and Sprigatito without even opening its eyes. It could be like, and you're dead.
So, and at this point, Sprigatito starts tiptoeing like a cat over to the back of Arcanine, and it's like, oh, so while you're distracted using Ember with Fuecoco, I'm going to jump up and tag it. And it does.
With a little baby scratch.
Yeah.
Like, not even... like, just like... Kind of like that Stewie meme where he's like, hi, and he runs away.
Yes. So it was at this point that Diana is like, okay, well, we lost. And then all of a sudden everyone comes around and say, hey, Terrapagos is awake. And they're like, oh, really? And we jump over to Terrapagos, and Terrapagos is eating its fill of food. And they're like, oh, man, it's time for us to go over to Laqua so we can find out the rest, or find where the rest of these Pokemon are. And they're like, Rayquaza, Lucius, and Laqua. I really wonder what the significance of the what is so similar for these three. So we keep going and we keep going, and Amethio ends up coming back onto his ship, and he's pissed, and he comes over and he sees Amber, and he's like, Amethio, you've returned. And he's like, yes, and I've returned empty-handed, and I saw the black Rayquaza, and I have failed my mission. And he is so down, and Amber is like, yes, but I'm sure you've gathered some intel. And Amethio is, yes, but in order to fight this Rayquaza, I need more power. And that is how that is how we end episode 3. And we are just pushing through these episodes, and boy oh boy are we pushing through. Doug, do you want to go ahead and start the last episode that we're going over, called Respective Departures? Okay, so we end up starting this episode with a look at Liko thinking about the 6 heroes, and then Diana's looking through the window, and she's like, man, Terrapagos feels much better, doesn't it, Arcanine? And Arcanine's like, yeah. And then she's like, yeah, next time that we battle, things will be a little bit different. They'll be a lot stronger. So I got to get my mouse. I'm going to skip this intro. And we're now at the part of the episode that Diana is getting ready to leave. And Freed comes in. He's like, that's all you're taking with you on your journey? And she's like, a Pokemon trainer always travels light. And she's like, I don't need a lot. All I need are my Pokemon, some food, and then this bag. And then they're getting ready to go over to an island that's out in the distance. And Liko is like, man, I'm sad. My grandmother's getting off at the next stop, and I'm not going to see her for a while again. And Roy's like, you know what? She's always going to be here with you. But why don't we throw her a going away party? And Liko's like, oh, that's a great idea. And then that's where we go and we get our needle thing, which needle thing hasn't been a thing for 3 episodes. I think that's the longest that we've gone without a needle thing, Doug.
No, I mean, we did get we got a decent dose of Dot, because she's, obviously she was kind of running point in kind of keeping track of the Lapras, and I believe she recorded the battle between Liko and Roy and Diana for study purposes, and
so she could help them out.
Yeah, so I mean, Dot was with us, but yeah, we haven't gotten a needle thing video in a minute.
And this needle thing video is all about terrestrialization. And it talks about how if you're like, say you're a water type and your terrestrialization is to another water type, all that does is basically power up all of your water moves. But there's also other ways where you can be a water type, but your terrestrialization is a fire type. It can throw off a battle. It can throw you for a swerve in the middle of a Pokemon battle. And it can have different outtakes depending on the type of terrestrialization that you end up becoming. And it's at this point that we end up, Iano ends up calling Dot while she's editing the video, and she's like, how do you feel being a Pokemon trainer finally? And Dot's like, well, I haven't really thought too much about it. And she's like,
I'm not a big fan of labeling stuff.
Yeah. And she's like, you know what? We need to do another collab while the fire's hot. You're a Pokemon trainer now, so we need to go ahead and do another collab with our Pokemon. And Dot's like, maybe. And Iano is like, does this have to do with your in real life friends? I can't.
Oh, I hate that phrase. I hate that phrase. That makes my skin crawl.
And Dot's like, no, nothing's really changed. And she's like, come on, go on. Tell me what you like about being a Pokemon trainer. And then there's a knock at Dot's door, and here comes Fuecoco, and Fuecoco's running in, and it's just jumping on the bed, and it's running around. And Roy and Liko end up walking in, and they're like, and Dot's freaking out because she's on the phone with Iano. And Iano's like, oh, those are your IRL friends.
Oh.
And Liko's like, hi. And she's like, oh, and you have Sprigatito love. Man, I would give you guys a cupcake if I could. And this is where Iano is like, come on, tell me. What does it feel like being a Pokemon trainer? And Dot's like, I don't know. And Liko and Roy are like, we're going to throw Diana a going away party. And Iano's like, oh my gosh, I love parties. And this is where we switch over to another conversation with Amethio talking to Gibeon via their telecommunication device that they have on the ship. And he's like, I have failed you. I saw the black Rayquaza, but it was way too strong and I could not capture it. And Gibeon was like, what was your impressions of it? And he was like, I think it was testing me. He's like, I don't feel like it was using all of its power the way that it needed to be, but I still couldn't beat it. And Gibeon's like, well, now that you've battled it, why don't you train and become a little bit better, and then you can go ahead and go after it again at full strength. And Amethio is like, I guess. And Hamber is standing on the side, and he's like, Amethio, come with me. And then they go down, and then they start having a Pokemon battle. And Amethio is like, I need to become stronger. He's like, Ceruledge, let's go. And Hammer sends out his, I believe it's a Duskull. Give me 1 sec.
Dusknoir.
Dusknoir. There you go. And then they end up having a Pokemon battle back and forth. And I'm not going to go over every move, but Hamber ends up terrestrializing his Pokemon. And Amethio is like, oh, so you're really holding back no punches during this Pokemon battle. And it was weird because Ceruledge was getting worked without the terrestrialization until the very end, where it was able to use Cycle Cut. And then once terrestrialized, it started going toe-to-toe with Ceruledge and blasted Ceruledge over into the corner. And Amethio is like, man, I can't even beat you. He's like, crap. So
you're a glorified butler.
So we come back up onto the ship, and Arcanine walks over to Diana, and Arcanine's like, "Come here." And Diana's like, What's going on?" And everyone's like, "Surprise!" And they're all throwing Diana a nice going away party. They have cake, they have food, they have everything going on here. And Diana's like, "Man, this stuff is really good. Thank you guys so much for everything that you guys have done for me." And it's at this point, give me 1 second. Let's see. Murdoch, a funny moment, Murdoch ends up drinking some of Poltergeist's goo, and it makes him a little bit ill, and he falls over, and he's down for the count. And they're like, he'll be fine. We'll make him some antidote, and he'll be back up and running in no time. So we go over into a later part in the episode, and Diana freed Liko and Roy and Captain Pikachu end up looking at a video that Dot has put together.
We find out that Dot has been, in addition to like putting together like Neato Thing videos, like we saw a little bit earlier, she's also been taking the stray footage from like random recordings she's been doing throughout the, definitely the 4-episode stretch that we've been covering, plus, any other time that like we knew that Dot was just kind of floating around.
Yes.
And she's basically been compiling that footage as a way to kind of thank Diana for the effect that she's had on everybody on the ship, in terms of like her time being like a member of the team.
Yes, it's basically like a going away video, and
yeah,
highlighting all of the moments, like the big moments that she's had on the ship. So that's a really nice send off.
That's a nice send-off, especially from somebody like Dot, who's kind of, very quiet, keeps to herself. I mean, we know she cares because, she's had some sweet moments. I mean, she's very introverted. I mean, she said in the episode when Liko and Roy invited her to the party, she's like, "Parties aren't really my thing."
Yeah.
So, I mean, we see this as kind of a Dot's way of coming out of her shell without really coming out of her shell, if that makes any sense.
So at this point, we jump back over to Amethio and Hamber, and Hamber says, "You're not going to be able to become the best that you can become without this." And he hands Amethio a terrestrialized ball. And Hamber is like, "You know what? Not just anyone can terrestrialize their Pokemon. You must get the power within your Ceruledge in order to terrestrialize. And I know that only you can do it." And Amethio is like, "Okay, well, thank you. I will do my best. And the next time I fight Rayquaza, I'll be at full power."
Yeah.
And it's at this point in the episode that we have, I always forget the name of this Pokemon, but it is, give me one, let's see.
It's I don't even know how you pronounce that.
Yeah,
I have to hear it.
I'm looking at where do you see the name of it?
It's a Behaim.
Oh, Beheeyem.
Beheeyem.
Yes. So Beheeyem comes into the frame, and when the Beheeyem comes over into the frame, it's recording what's going on between Hamber and Amethio. And that's when the rest of the crew is like, Hamber has come into has taken Amethio under his wing pretty heavily, hasn't he? And they're like, yeah, but it's still not going to veer us off from getting over to where this Rayquaza is. And so we jump back up onto the ship with our heroes, and this is where Liko is saying her goodbye to her grandmother. And she gives her a bracelet and says, please take this bracelet. I made this for you. And it's at this point that that she is getting ready to jump off and the ship, or yeah, she does jump off the ship, and she goes over to the island of where she's going to start her next adventure. And everyone is kind of sad, but they're happy at the same time. And it's time for them to now go and find Entei and Cleavor to finish off their journey and to find out what this this place called Laqua is all about as well. So they kind of do their big hand shake or fist bump thing that they do on the ship to kind of end off this part of the season of the episodes before we jump into the next season. And that is it, everybody. That is the end of part 3 of Pokemon Horizons on Netflix. Bro, these were some good ass episodes.
This was really good. I liked how these 4 were chained together.
They need to do this for all episodes. I know.
For real, like take advantage of the to be continued and actually use it.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I know all the episodes say to be continued, but how many times did Ash have a to be continued and then proceeded to go on a month-long journey of filler?
Exactly.
Before he got into something relevant. But yeah, I mean, this was 4 important episodes. You know, like you said, it's the end of a part. It's the end of part 3. We're rounding the corner to part 4. In terms of our coverage, we're about getting ready to get into our movie to end the year. I mean, it's exciting times around here.
It really is. So, all right, let's go ahead and go through. You know what? I'm going to bunch these episodes up, and since these episodes were so significant, and I don't really like one over the other, I'm going to give these episodes about a 4.5 of how they ended these, because it's not very often that we get a full-blown 4 episodes straight that are like for each other, and the story continues, and you find out so, like, we were given so much information in these 4 episodes that I can't divide it up. So each one of these, I'm gonna give a total of 4.5 stars on these. Doug, how about you?
I am in complete agreement with you in terms of, I think you have to take these all as one big ball of wax. You know, we got a lot of information. I didn't feel overwhelmed. Like, I thought they did a good job of kind of pacing everything together. I liked how they highlighted Terrapagos using its terrestrialization kind of on its own volition. Like, I mean, obviously, Liko didn't tell it to do it.
Yes.
It just kind of sensed the situation that Liko and them were in trouble. I like that we established that terrestrialization is kind of a Hail Mary kind of move. Because, I mean, it took it out for the rest of the episode. I liked that they didn't just kind of slap us in the face with, oh, by the way, Diana's leaving. Like, she has her own reasons to, and Liko and her had a sweet moment.
And I'm sure we're gonna see Grandma again pretty soon.
Oh yeah, I would be shocked if it's like, nope, that's it. She's just off in the wilderness fucking around. So yeah, and I mean we've got a clear goal as we go into part 4. They say we're going to find Entei and Cleavor. I mean, obviously you didn't have to shout out the fact that they still have to wrangle in Rayquaza. I think it's understood. um, I like that we also in the background have the explorers are going after Rayquaza as well. But then there's also a subset of the explorers that are kind of trying to counter what Amethio's crew is doing. So it's kind of like this three-way thing within a. I mean, it's kind of like Inception in that way. So that's kind of cool. All that to say, and I'm not doing it just to be different. I'm as a 4-pack. I'm going to give this a 4.
Okay.
Because I just didn't see something that I would allow it to nudge up to that 0.5.
Okay.
I mean these were all good, and I think I think if you take one piece out, I think it kind of doesn't make sense. So you kind of need it all 4. I'm kind of glad that this was the end of a part. It wasn't just in the middle. And yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for part 4, but I'm also excited to maybe bounce into another timeline.
Which we are going to do. So, all right, everybody, just a little bit of housekeeping one final time here for you. If you're not already a member of our Patreon, go ahead and subscribe to us over on Patreon. If you are interested in our movie Pokemon Heroes review that we will be doing in a couple of weeks to start off the new year. We are going to take the next 2 weeks to record that. We are also, once the movie drops, the movie will be dropped for 2 weeks like we normally do. So that means here for the free feed, this is the last episode for 1 month. And we have a lot to give you over on our Patreon. We have our Pokemon Adventures. We have our Pokemon movies. We'll be having more game shows coming on. If you want to be a part of a future game show, you have to subscribe on Patreon in order to participate in those games. But we are looking forward to future games and to be able to communicate with you guys more. And if you want to communicate with us directly, and if you can't get through to me on Twitter or X, the best way is on Patreon, because the messages come directly right over to my phone and I respond to those very quickly. So anything else that you would like to add, Doug, before we end this year?
No, I mean, I just want to thank everybody, whether this was your first time listening to us, whether we're in your whether we are a part of your podcast rotation or anywhere in between. I want to thank you for being a part of our journey for another year.
Oh, yeah, I there's something I can tell you. So we are within all of our audience, we are in the top 10 of their listens every week, according to Spotify. Spotify gave us a nice little rap, and for a big hand of you, you listen to us every single week, and not only do you listen to us every single week, you listen to other episodes as well. So thank you, everybody.
So yes, I will piggyback off of that, and I will say thank you for coming along in another year of our journey. We continue to grow year on year. I promise at one point we'll actually figure out what we're doing on this thing. I feel like we're always kind of figuring out something. We're figuring out a new angle. We're figuring out how we can, bring the best fresh content to you.
Absolutely.
And yeah, so, thank you for your clicks. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your downloads. Thank you for sharing. thank you for any type of engagement you've given us over this past year, and we look forward to another strong, successful 2025.
Absolutely. So go ahead and give your last goodbye, Doug, on our free feed for this year, Doug.
Goodbye to 2024, Doug.
And this is Professor Chris G telling all of you, we will see you next year here on the free feed, or if you're listening to us on Patreon, we'll be back in 2 weeks for our movie review. Have a good night, and we will see you later.